Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a review. Well, it's more of an early impression because all I have is a decant, but pretty fat decant, 10 mil decant. And you can see how much I have put a dent in this bad boy. I have worn this a lot. And this is from the house of St Dupont, which actually is a house that you have never heard me talk about on the channel before because I've never done a review of any of their juice before. They are a very underappreciated house in Fragcom, and this is a Julien Rasquinet creation, and actually that's how I got this decant, was because I wanted to see his work. I was kind of following his work many years ago. I must have got this 4 or 5 years ago, if memory serves. And this is called Perfect Tobacco. It's from 2019, and St Dupont, if you're not familiar with the house, they are well known mostly for their lighters. They're very expensive lighters if you are into that kind of thing. If you're into paying $1,800 for a lighter, St Dupont is your brand. Well, maybe you can find some cheaper for $1,000 that are only like palladium or platinum or gold or something like that, you know, some sort of diamond encrusted lighter. I'm sure they're badass, but and I would love to have one because I do smoke a cigar occasionally. But man, $1,000 to $1,800 for a lighter. It better be the best damn lighter of all time. Anyways, that's really what they're known for. But I hear that they have some pretty solid fragrance offerings as well. Unfortunately, I can't really speak to that because this is the only one of the bunch that I've smelled, that I've ever sniffed. So the first thing you have to keep in mind when you talk about Perfect Tobacco is that this is a amalgamation. This is a blend of three kind of things, is the way how I would explain it. Well, actually, before I really start getting into the review, let's maybe lay the groundwork. Let me give you the note listing and read the little blurb. So, and it is a very little blurb. Excuse me. It says, this perfume is the perfect choice. Well, Perfect Tobacco, perfect choice. If you want to add a touch of beauty to your life and fill it with cinnamon-infused ginger and the distinctive tobacco smell, this unique fragrance is filled with delicate vanilla, which is specially added to the oud so that you would enjoy the feeling of splendor and refreshment all the time. That's the best they could do on a blurb, apparently. I was told I need to spray more on camera, so let us spray, shall we? I'm going to go to the gym after this, so I'll be reeking of Perfect Tobacco in October in Texas. Okay, I probably didn't need to do that, but there you go. For the folks asking me to spray on camera, there you have it. So, okay, here's how I would describe this fragrance. So, if you know a little bit of history, especially of Julien Rasquinet's history, this will really serve you well in trying to picture how this smells, because the number one thing to think about when you're smelling Perfect Tobacco is that you are smelling something that is Julien Rasquinet's style of Middle Eastern perfumery. He was trained in Dubai, and Dubai was sort of one of the places on Earth where there was a shortage of perfumers. So he went to the spot on Earth where he was really sought after, which was a pretty smart thing to do after being trained the basics of perfumery by the great Pierre Bourdon. Okay, so he was one of the pupils of Pierre Bourdon, one of the all-time great perfumers. Green Irish Tweed, Cool Water, Coros, all that good stuff, right? So to me, Perfect Tobacco easily could have been called Perfect Oud or something like that, because it is a big rose oud accord in this fragrance, right in the heart of this fragrance, right in the heart. You're going to get this big rose oud that hits you. Many people compare his work, previous work, like for example, Julien Rasquinet is known for things like the Moon, Royal Oud, and this little bad boy, which is from the Rare collection of Histoires de Parfum, and it is called Fidelis, or Rare Fidelis, as I like to call it. I think Rare Fidelis sounds better, but Rare is the collection. The fragrance is called, it's the edition Rare Fidelis, and I like that they do these little 15 ml bottles. This is also on the to review list very soon, but so if many people compare Fidelis to the Moon, I would actually argue that yes, there are some slight bits and pieces here and there, but I would say more of a comparable creation would be to compare something like Perfect Tobacco to Fidelis, personally. They both use a very similar oud accord, which is not too funky of an oud. It's a very embellished, very Western style oud, if you will. But one of the things that makes Perfect Tobacco different, I would say, is what brings us to what I would call the second pillar of trying to understand how perfect tobacco smells. And that is this very designer-like sweetness. Already I'm getting it from, I just did the spray a couple minutes ago, and already this designer-like sweetness is really starting to take over the scent, okay? So to be fair, this did come out in 2019. The niche game was a lot different in 2019. Nowadays, in 2024, it wouldn't surprise me one bit to see something like this, like Perfect Tobacco, smell like, in one of the new Amouage bottles or something along those lines. The niche game has gone more and more mainstream. They put more and more what I would just call mainstream scents in niche bottles, and they want to charge you $400 or $500. That's the game. They want to charge as much as possible. Go watch my review of the new Frederick Mall Hope if you want to hear more about that little topic. They want to make as much per bottle sold as possible, and so nowadays it wouldn't surprise me one bit to see this in a niche bottle, and instead of charging $50 or $100, which is where you can get this at, especially at discounters, that niche house would probably charge you $400 or $500 for this. Just for the pleasure of owning one of their fragrances, So, to me, in 2019, the niche game was a little bit different, and brands like Amouage were not releasing stuff like this. They were releasing stuff like Overture Man, which was, I think, an absolute masterpiece. And so, this type of perfumery has become much more ubiquitous in the niche side of things. And actually, I think most of Julien Rasquinet's creations are all pretty much niche brands, if you will. So, I am still calling it a designer-like sweetness. And if you can kind of think of different brands that use that designer-like sweetness in the niche realm, if you're kind of thinking what I'm thinking, names like Parfum de Marly are probably coming to mind. So if you smelled something like Herod, some of the Initio fragrances or whatever it is, that's going to get you in the realm of kind of understanding it. So you have to keep in mind, the first pillar is that Middle Eastern style of perfumery that Julien Rasquinet has become known for. So you can't just take Initio, Parfum de Marly style sweetness and just imagine that. You have to use these pillars sort of all come together to create the scent, okay? So just think of things like Herod, but imagine it in the style of that Middle Eastern perfumery that Julien Rasquinet has been trained in. So what basically begins to kind of assault your senses, especially if you don't like sweetness, like I usually don't like sweetness. What ends up happening are a couple things join the party all at once very quickly. One is this very vanillic sweetness that smells very much like a cooking vanilla. And it's a very creamy take. It's almost like a creamy cake, right? It's a creamy take on vanilla, but it has this creamy cake feel, and it's being placed right on top of that Middle Eastern style of perfumery that Julien Rasquinet is known so well for. So if I could change anything about this fragrance, hands down, without a doubt, it would be the sweetness. I would tone down that creamy cake-like vanilla way, way, way down, maybe even remove it altogether. But it is what gives this fragrance this designer-like likability. So if you want to wear something that's very mass appealing, if you're going to go to a bar and you want people around you to like what you're wearing, usually I don't give a fuck what the people around me like, whether they like it or not. If they don't like it, fuck it, get out of my aura. You know what I mean? But if you are one of those people who cares about what other people think about how you smell, and you want people to say, wow, you smell great, or give you a compliment or whatever, then the designer-like sweetness in Perfect Tobacco does the job here. It really works well for the masses, let's put it that way, okay? Now, along with that sort of vanilla cakiness, there is a second part to the composition that will greet you right very quickly around the same time as the cakey vanilla starts to come in a couple minutes in. And that is this sort of, you could say, almost like a spice combination. That spice combination is made up mostly of cinnamon. That's what's in the note listing. I don't know if I read you the note listing, but the note listing is basically cinnamon, ginger in the top, tobacco and rose in the heart, vanilla and oud in the base, and that's pretty much it. So the cinnamon is what really is supposed to greet you in the beginning with this ginger. But what I end up getting too, along with the cinnamon, is, and the cinnamon, by the way, comes across as this heavy swirl of cinnamon. So just imagine it almost like a deep, dark, fall, winter cinnamon. Very, very heavy. And I detect some cardamom, and that adds to the Middle Eastern touch to me. Oh, the cardamom is beautiful in here, to be fair, along with the cinnamon. You have to almost try to distance it from some of the sweetness that is trying to kind of bog everything down. You really have to try to peel back the layers because the sweetness will start to overshadow things as you're trying to kind of pick stuff out. As you're trying to peel back the layers, the sweetness is like trying to glue the layers on, if that makes sense. So if you pay close attention, you will smell it. You'll smell the cardamom, you'll smell the cinnamon. And when you blend the cinnamon and the cardamom, you get this luxurious, spicy kind of swirl on top of everything else that is to come, okay? So the other thing I should mention is that the cinnamon hits you directly from the start. And also it feels like with that cinnamon, you're kind of hit with this amber accord almost instantly. And that amber accord is not so dissimilar to what you smell in Rare Fidelis by Histoires de Parfum. Now, mentioning the ginger in the top. The ginger is trying to basically add a touch of freshness. That's its job, okay? It tries to add that kind of zing to the fragrance, if you will. But basically, it tries to fill the role of citruses, which are absent. There are no citruses. You notice there's no yuzu, there's no lemon, there's no bergamot, none of that, right? And so the ginger is trying to kind of fill that role that citruses would normally play, but they're missing. They're not here. So Rasquinet probably thought, you know what? We're using a lot of very heavy ingredients that can make the fragrance feel quite down. I want to try to add something that's going to lift it up a little bit. And his solution was this ginger. Now, you can tell from the second the fragrance hits your skin, though, it's a losing battle. That the ginger is not going to win this battle. The ginger was basically sent on a suicide mission because this is a heavy, sweet, spicy fragrance right from the get-go in that Middle Eastern style with the rose oud like we talked about initially. The ginger tries valiantly to do its job, but it's a straight suicide mission. Now, let's talk about the oud because you can't talk about the oud in here without talking about the rose. The reason I say this could easily have been called Perfect Oud instead of Perfect Tobacco is because to my nose anyways, the rose oud combination is just as prominent as the tobacco. So even though the name is Perfect Tobacco, the rose oud, that embellished Western style oud, if you've been sniffing real oud oils for a while, I still enjoy wearing these type of scents, these type of oud fragrances, these type of Western oud fragrances, but it is what it is, You're not going to be impressed with the Western style oud fragrances once you've been sniffing the real stuff for a while. If you really want to get nitpicky, I would also say that the rose here has a very synthetic, almost jammy, synthetic-like feel. Usually that jamminess comes from synthetic rose, notes and accords that are being used by the perfumers. Again, after reviewing so many beautiful fragrances that felt so realistic, Rose de Jamal, Malik Al-Taif, all this kind of stuff. Very hard not to find fault with this style of perfumery. But then again, not everything can be in the artisanal place. But just for where I am in my journey, documenting what I'm thinking, that's kind of what I'm thinking. But also, to be fair, I think these can be found at discounters for $50 to $100. So, it's just kind of one of those things. The scent could be beat up a little bit for how synthetic it starts to turn is where I'm going. The synthetic DNA may put some people off, although I still enjoy wearing these type of scents. So, even though my heart is now with the Bortnikov and Aries Ladores and Ensars and all that stuff, I still enjoy wearing this. But as I'm wearing this today, you know what came to mind? It smells like if you took like the Montal DNA, but actually used a perfumer that could blend, because I don't think whoever's making those Montals knows what the hell they're doing. But that's a great way to kind of put it. Imagine you have Julien Rasquinet, who is a perfumer who I really do think knows what he's doing, creating this Montal style rose oud, right? So I would much rather it be done by Rasquinet, but it's still in that style, okay? So now let's get to the star of the show, the name of the fragrance, the tobacco. So the tobacco is in the style of Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille, but the tobacco note here is even less prominent than in Tobacco Vanille. I like the tobacco in Tobacco Vanille better. And if you can imagine like these layers on a cake, right? I mentioned vanilla being like this cakey cupcake vanilla earlier. Now we have layers on a cake, okay? So now we come to the third and the final pillar, I would say, of kind of understanding this scent. So to me, the tobacco is a tobacco that's berried underneath all of these layers. So I just, for the shits and giggles, I listen to some people talk about this scent. And of course, the first thing they say, oh, beast mode tobacco, amazing tobacco fragrance. And I don't really get that. For me, really, as you get into the dry down 3, 4, 5 hours in, you realize that tobacco it's coming out a little bit, but it's like it's concealed, you know? It's like the tobacco is like submerged underneath this like plaster like vanilla. Like I mentioned, you're trying to peel back the layers and the sweetness is trying to kind of stick them on. Imagine you take that, you know, cake plaster or whatever they call it. What's that stuff? That fondue or whatever, and just like try to glue the pieces together. There is this plaster-like feel that feels like it's just trying to hold the tobacco underneath. It's submerging it underneath. The tobacco is trying to come out, but it's being submerged. And it's like this coagulated amber that almost starts to turn slightly syrupy. And I mentioned the amber is there from the very beginning with the cinnamon. And as it continues to dry, you start to kind of pick it up a little bit more and more. I already said if I could change one thing about the fragrance, it would be the sweetness being toned down. But if I could change a second thing, right, getting 2 requests here, it would be, if this was a bespoke fragrance for the Ram, I would tell Julien Rasquinet, amp the shit up out of that tobacco note. You know, the tobacco note needs to be turned up more to my nose. I wish I got more of that leafy brown humidor, you know, tobacco leaf, you know, the brown crinkliness of the leaf. I wish I got more of that, the spiciness, all that stuff. And unfortunately, like I said, the tobacco feels very immersed under all these other notes. But tobacco is one of the areas where I actually do like a little bit of sweetness. Usually I hate sweet fragrances, but from time to time I do crave a sweet honey tobacco. That's why I'll wear things like, you know, the Pure Havana by Thierry Mugler, or I mentioned Herod earlier. These kind of sweeter tobacco fragrances I will wear from time to time. I'm wearing it October 4th in Texas, which you would expect it to be a beautiful fall day. Instead, it's going to be 90 fucking degrees outside, which is just an absolute beating. So, you know, I'm hoping that maybe wearing these fall fragrances will start to change the weather here a little bit. But I came about Perfect Tobacco because I was kind of pulling on the thread, you know, the perfumer thread. It's a great way to explore things. Find a perfumer you like and then follow him throughout, or her, throughout all of the different houses that they kind of go through. And following the work of Julien Rasquinet basically brought me to this decant. I wouldn't have it if not for the fact that I knew it was a Julien Rasquinet. Who knows? Maybe you'll find more from the brand on the channel as time goes on. I hear there are some other quote-unquote good ones from St Dupont. But this is, why do I always have to throw it? This is the one that, and then the top came off. I'll find it later. This is the one that, you know, we began with. So if there's others from the brand that you think I should sniff, do let me know. You know, let me know what you think of the house. Let me know what you think of the fragrance in particular. Let me know what you think of Julien Rasquinet's style. I will be reviewing more from him, specifically Fidelis, coming up very soon, hopefully, and some others. But yeah, this is kind of an under the radar Julien Rasquinet, if you will. But if you like his style of Rare Fidelis, I would urge you to check out Perfect Tobacco, which again, like I said, could easily have been called Perfect Oud, just because of the way that it was kind of composed. But it's not bad, you know, it's not bad for just a little decant that I got to know. Helped me understand Julien Rasquinet's style and the way that he works and all that stuff. So that's my quick review, early impression, let's call it, because I don't have a full bottle, early impression video. But as always, appreciate you guys watching. Thanks for being here. Happy fall, everybody. Cheers, guys. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.